They laughed when they assigned me the broken-down cabin at the edge of the property. My sister Jennifer actually clapped her hands with joy when she saw my disappointed face. What none of them knew, what I had kept secret for 3 long years, was that I owned every single acre they were standing on, every barn, every horse, every blade of grass beneath their expensive boots. And by the end of this weekend, they would discover exactly what happens when you spend your entire life treating someone like garbage, only to find out they hold all the cards. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I was 42 years old when my family decided to take their annual ranch trip to what they believed was Uncle Harold's old property in Montana. The sprawling 1,200-acre ranch had been in our family for generations, passed down from my great-grandfather who had built it with his own bare hands during the Depression. When Uncle Harold died 3 years ago, everyone assumed the property went to my father, the eldest son. They were completely wrong. Uncle Harold had always seen something in me that nobody else did. While my parents praised Jennifer for her law degree and Kevin for his business success, Uncle Harold watched me work quietly, saving every penny, never asking for anything. He saw how I was treated at family gatherings, always given the smallest portion, the worst seat, the broken chair. He noticed when my accomplishments were completely ignored. So when he rewrote his will 6 months before his death, he made a choice that would change everything. He left the entire ranch to me, the forgotten middle child, with one condition. I had to keep it secret for exactly 3 years. The day we arrived at the ranch, my family's true colors showed immediately. My father had organized everything, or so he thought. He had contacted what he believed was the property management company and arranged for a weekend family reunion. What he did not know was that I had created that company myself, and every single email he sent came directly to my inbox. I watched from my rental car as they pulled up in their luxury vehicles. Jennifer arrived first in her white Mercedes, her husband, Richard, trailing behind in his black BMW. Kevin came next with his new girlfriend, a woman half his age who looked bored already. My parents brought up the rear in their Cadillac, my mother already complaining about the dust. I had given specific instructions to my ranch manager, Tom, who had worked for Uncle Harold for 20 years. He was the only person who knew the truth, and he had become like a brother to me over the past 3 years. Together, we had transformed the ranch from a struggling property into a thriving operation. We had added horses, cattle, and even started a small organic farming section that was now quite profitable. Tom played his part perfectly. He greeted my family warmly and began the cabin assignments. The main lodge went to my parents naturally. The 2 beautiful guest cabins with mountain views went to Jennifer and Kevin. And for me, Tom announced apologetically, there was only the old caretaker's cabin left, the one with no running hot water and a roof that leaked badly. My mother did not even pretend to be sorry. She simply shrugged and said that someone had to take it, and since I had contributed nothing to this family, it might as well be me. The caretaker's cabin was exactly as terrible as they hoped. The wooden walls were weathered gray, the porch sagged dangerously in the middle, and the windows were so dirty that barely any light came through. Inside, a rusty bed frame held a mattress that had seen better decades, and the kitchen consisted of a hot plate and a sink that dripped constantly throughout the night. I smiled as I set down my bag. This cabin held more memories for me than any of them could possibly imagine. Uncle Harold and I had spent countless hours here, sitting on that broken porch, talking about life while watching the sun set over the mountains. He had told me his dreams for the ranch, his disappointments with our family, and his hopes that someone would carry on his legacy. That first evening, my family gathered at the main lodge for dinner. Tom had arranged for a local caterer to bring food, and I had specifically requested my mother's least favorite dishes just to see her face. I sat at the end of the long table as always, while Jennifer dominated the conversation with stories about her law firm and Kevin bragged about his latest business deals. Nobody asked about my life. Nobody wondered how I could afford to take time off work, Nobody questioned why I seemed so calm in that terrible cabin while they lounged in luxury. They simply assumed I had nothing worth sharing, nothing worth celebrating, nothing at all worth noticing. After dinner, I walked back to my cabin under a sky full of stars. Tomorrow would begin the real show. Tomorrow, I would start dropping hints about the property's true ownership. Tomorrow, my family would finally learn that their cruelty had consequences. The next morning started with my father announcing his grand plans for the day. He wanted to tour the property on horseback, see the cattle operation, and discuss with Tom about potentially selling some of the land for development. He spoke as if he already owned the entire place, as if the decisions were his alone to make as he pleased. I saddled up alongside everyone else, choosing a horse named Thunder, who happened to be my personal favorite. Tom had trained him specifically for me over the past 2 years, and we moved together like old friends. Jennifer noticed my ease on the horse and made a snide comment about how even I could not mess up just sitting still on an animal. As we rode across the property, Tom began his tour. He pointed out the new irrigation system, the expanded grazing areas, the recently built barn that housed our prize-winning quarter horses. My father nodded approvingly, already calculating numbers in his head, probably wondering how much money he could extract from a quick sale. Then we reached the organic farm section, and Tom made his first subtle move. He mentioned that the current owner had invested heavily in sustainable agriculture, had won several state awards, and had turned the ranch into one of the most profitable operations in the entire county. My mother asked who this mysterious owner was, and Tom simply smiled and said that the owner preferred to remain anonymous for now. I watched my father's face carefully. He was confused, concerned that perhaps Uncle Harold had sold the property before his death. He began asking questions, his voice growing agitated. Tom deflected each question expertly, enjoying every moment of the game we had planned together. That afternoon, everything began to unravel for my family's assumptions. A delivery truck arrived with supplies, and the driver asked specifically for Mr. Daniel Mercer. My mother overheard and demanded to know why anyone would be looking for me on this property. I shrugged and simply said it must be some mistake. But the mistakes kept happening. A contractor stopped by to discuss the new guest lodge being built on the north side of the property, and he also asked for Daniel Mercer. A veterinarian arrived for a scheduled check on the horses and handed me the paperwork directly, thanking me for my continued business. Each incident was carefully orchestrated, each one chipping away at my family's certainty about who actually controlled this land. Jennifer cornered me after the veterinarian left. She wanted to know what was going on, why everyone seemed to know my name, why I was so comfortable here when I should be miserable in that awful cabin. I told her that I had been here before, that Uncle Harold had invited me several times over the years. She scoffed and said that was impossible because Uncle Harold never liked anyone in the family. That statement revealed more than she realized. Uncle Harold had not liked the family because he had seen exactly what they were. He had watched my parents favor Jennifer and Kevin while ignoring me completely. He had witnessed the cruel comments, the deliberate exclusions, the petty humiliations, and in his final years he had made a decision that would correct decades of injustice. I looked at Jennifer and said nothing more. Let her wonder, let her worry. The truth would come soon enough, and when it did, no amount of legal expertise would help her claim anything. That night, something happened that I had not planned for, something that would change the entire course of the weekend. My father announced that he had contacted a real estate developer who was willing to pay $15 million for the ranch. He had papers ready to sign, contracts prepared, everything in order to finalize the sale by Monday morning. Let me be absolutely clear about what happened next, because this was the moment when everything I had built, everything Uncle Harold had trusted me with, came under direct attack from my own father. My father stood at the head of the dining table, papers spread before him, a smile of triumph on his face. He explained that as the eldest son, he had inherited the property automatically through family succession laws. He had already spoken to a lawyer friend who confirmed his claim. The sale would proceed. The money would be split among the family according to his discretion, and that would be the end of the ranch forever. I felt my heart pounding as I listened to his confident words. He had no idea that every legal argument he made was completely wrong. He had no idea that I held the original deed in my cabin, along with Uncle Harold's notarized will and 3 years of property tax payments made in my name. He had no idea that his lawyer friend had not actually checked any records. But I said nothing. Not yet. I wanted him to commit fully to his lie, to sign papers that had no legal standing, to embarrass himself completely before I revealed the truth. I wanted all of them to show exactly who they were before I showed them who I had become through Uncle Harold's faith in me. The next morning, my father moved quickly. He had invited the developer to the ranch for a formal meeting, convinced that this deal would make him wealthy beyond his dreams. He dressed in his best casual clothes, the ones that cost more than most people earn in a week, and practiced his negotiating face in the mirror. I watched from my cabin porch as the developer's helicopter landed in the east field. His name was Marcus Wheeler, a man I had actually met 2 years ago when he first approached me about buying the property. I had declined his offer politely, explaining that the ranch was not for sale at any price. He had respected my decision, and we had parted on good terms. When Marcus emerged from his helicopter and saw me sitting on my porch, his face showed immediate recognition. He waved enthusiastically and started walking toward me, leaving my father confused and sputtering near the main lodge. I walked out to meet Marcus halfway, shaking his hand warmly while my family watched in complete bewilderment. My father rushed over, introducing himself as the property owner, extending his hand for a shake that Marcus did not return. Instead, Marcus looked between us with obvious confusion and asked my father what he meant by property owner. My father began his rehearsed speech about inheritance and family rights, his voice growing louder and more desperate with each word he spoke. Marcus interrupted him mid-sentence. He turned to me and asked directly if I had changed my mind about selling the ranch. My father's face went pale. Jennifer dropped her coffee cup. My mother grabbed Kevin's arm for support. And in that moment, with one simple question, 3 years of secrets began to crumble. I told Marcus that I had not changed my mind, that the ranch was still not for sale, and that there seemed to be some serious confusion about who actually owned the property. Marcus nodded understandingly and apologized for the misunderstanding, explaining that he had received a call from someone claiming to represent the estate. He looked at my father with barely concealed contempt. My father exploded. He demanded to know what kind of game I was playing, how I could possibly claim ownership of property that belonged to him by birthright. He accused me of fraud, of manipulation, of somehow tricking Uncle Harold in his final years. His face turned red, his voice echoed across the valley, and his carefully maintained composure shattered completely in front of everyone present. I remained calm. I had waited 3 years for this moment, and I was not going to let his anger diminish it. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the documents I had carried with me all weekend. The deed, the will, the tax records, the property transfer papers filed with the county 3 years ago. I handed them to Marcus, who reviewed them quickly and confirmed their legitimacy. Jennifer pushed forward, demanding to see the papers, her legal training kicking in as she searched desperately for some flaw in the documentation. But Uncle Harold had been thorough. He had worked with the best estate lawyers in the state, had anticipated every possible challenge, and had created an ironclad transfer of ownership that left no room for dispute. My mother began to cry, though I suspect her tears were more for the lost millions than for any genuine emotion. Kevin just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The hours that followed were filled with chaos. Jennifer called her law firm, desperately seeking some legal avenue to challenge the will. My father threatened to sue me, to have me arrested, to destroy my reputation completely. Kevin tried to negotiate, suddenly remembering that we were siblings, suddenly interested in my life and my feelings and my well-being after decades of complete indifference. I let them exhaust themselves while I sat on the porch of my cabin, the cabin they had given me as an insult, the cabin that Uncle Harold and I had loved. Tom brought me coffee and sat beside me, both of us watching the drama unfold from a comfortable distance. He asked if I was enjoying this, and I told him honestly that I felt nothing but a deep sadness. Because here is the truth that nobody expects. Revenge does not taste as sweet as stories would have you believe. Watching my family crumble, seeing their greed and entitlement exposed, did not fill me with joy. It filled me with grief for the relationships we never had, for the love that was never given, for the decades of dismissal that brought us here. Uncle Harold had understood this. In his letter to me, the one included with the will, he had warned me that victory would feel hollow. He had advised me to use this opportunity not for revenge, but for truth. He wanted me to show my family who they had become, to give them a chance to change, to offer forgiveness even if they did not deserve it. I had followed his advice for 3 years. I had kept the secret, observed from a distance, waited for the right moment. And now that moment had finally come. That evening, I called a family meeting at the main lodge. Everyone gathered reluctantly, their faces showing various stages of anger, grief, and calculation. Jennifer had dark circles under her eyes from hours of legal research that had produced nothing useful. My father sat rigidly, refusing to look at me. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Kevin scrolled through his phone, probably texting his girlfriend about this disaster. I stood before them and spoke from my heart. I told them about Uncle Harold's letters, about the years of visits they never knew about the conversations we shared on that old cabin porch. I explained why he had chosen me, not because I was better than them, but because I was invisible to them. My invisibility had allowed him to see my true character, my quiet dedication, my genuine love for this land. Then I told them something that surprised even Tom. I said that I was willing to share the ranch with them, to create a family trust that would preserve the property for future generations. But this offer came with conditions. They would have to acknowledge what they had done to me over the years. They would have to commit to changing their behavior. They would have to spend 1 week every year working on the ranch alongside me. Jennifer laughed bitterly and called it blackmail. My father called it ridiculous and absurd. My mother said nothing, but I saw something flicker in her eyes, something that might have been shame, or recognition, or perhaps the beginning of understanding that she had failed as a parent in ways she could not easily dismiss or rationalize away anymore. The next morning, I woke to find my mother standing outside my cabin. She looked different somehow, smaller than I remembered, older than her years. She asked if we could talk, and I invited her to sit on the broken porch steps where Uncle Harold and I had once watched countless sunsets together. She told me things I had never heard before. She admitted that she had always seen my potential, but had been afraid to nurture it because Jennifer and Kevin demanded so much attention. She confessed that she had used me as a buffer, as the one child she did not have to worry about because I never complained and never asked for anything. She said she had convinced herself that I was fine, that I did not need her the way my siblings did, and that lie had allowed her to neglect me. I listened without interrupting. These words were a long time coming, and I would not diminish them with premature forgiveness or easy absolution. She needed to say all of it, to hear herself speak the truth out loud, to understand the weight of what she was finally admitting to her forgotten son. When she finished, she asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her that forgiveness was a process, not a moment. I told her that I wanted to believe her, but words were easy and actions were hard. I told her that this ranch would be here, that I would be here, and that the opportunity for reconciliation would always remain open. She cried then, real tears that I had never seen from her before. And something in my heart, some frozen place that had existed for as long as I could remember, began slowly to thaw. My father never apologized. He left that morning with Jennifer, both of them promising legal action that never materialized. Kevin lingered for a day longer, not because he cared about reconciliation, but because he was calculating whether my offer was worth accepting. In the end, he too drove away, his girlfriend already posting complaints about the rural isolation on her social media accounts. But my mother stayed. She spent the rest of the week working alongside me and Tom, learning about the horses, the cattle, the organic farm that had become my passion. She learned how to muck stalls and mend fences and check irrigation lines. She discovered muscles she forgot she had and developed blisters that turned to calluses that turned to strength over the days. On her last evening, we sat on my cabin porch and watched the sunset together. She told me stories about Uncle Harold that I had never heard, about how he had been the black sheep of his own generation, about how he had understood rejection in ways that prepared him to recognize it in me. She said that she finally understood why he chose me, and that she was grateful he had. I drove her to the airport myself, something that surprised us both. Before she went through security, she hugged me for the first time since I was a small child. She promised to return, to do the work, to earn back what she had lost through years of neglect. The ranch felt different after everyone left. Quieter, but not lonely. Fuller, somehow, with possibilities I had not imagined when this weekend began. I walked the fields with Tom and made plans for the coming season together as brothers. 3 years have passed since that weekend. My mother has kept her promise, returning every summer to work on the ranch. She has changed in ways I never expected, becoming someone I actually want to know, someone I can call family without the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Jennifer and my father remain distant. They send Christmas cards with generic messages, acknowledging my existence without truly seeing me. I have made peace with this. Some relationships cannot be repaired, and forcing reconciliation would only create new wounds. I wish them well from afar, and focus my energy on those who have chosen to show up. Kevin surprised everyone last year. He arrived unannounced, humbled by a business failure that stripped away his arrogance. He spent 2 months learning the ranch, discovering a talent for horse training that none of us expected. He still comes back regularly now, and our relationship is slowly rebuilding on an honest foundation. As for me, I am happy. The ranch thrives, the land grows more beautiful each year, and Uncle Harold's legacy continues through everything I do. I still live in that old caretaker's cabin, though Tom and I have fixed the roof and the plumbing. It reminds me of where I came from and where I have arrived. If you are listening to this story, perhaps you too know what it feels like to be invisible to those who should love you most. Perhaps you understand the pain of being dismissed, overlooked, forgotten. Let my story give you hope. Your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it. Thank you for listening to my story. Please write in the comments what country you are listening from, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.